Hey, everybody, it's time for another wonderful edition of the Jersey Tales. All right. So who all do we have on today's show? Bunt's here.
Howdy, howdy.
Jingles is here.
Yo.
Con's here.
Hi.
Psylocke is here.
Hey, what's going on?
And it's me, Aquino, or Red the Ram. Welcome, everyone, to the Jersey Tales. The football gods had smiled on us this weekend because we had a wonderful weekend of football. But this weekend significantly beat last weekend, or the weekend before it, I suppose, where it was mostly blowouts by like the second quarter on every single game, as opposed to this one where, you know, for the majority of the games, at least until halftime or until after halftime, they were all pretty solid games.
Well, last week also was superior because we got to see the Cowboys lose. And
one of the really interesting facts about this weekend was that every team that lost missed a field goal out of all four games.
It really makes you think because, like, they're so crucial, and whatever. If you're a fan of that team and then you hear the announcers say that this game would be tied if they made the field goal, it just changes everything, even though it's a measly 3 points.
Well, it's that and the whole thing where it's like, I don't believe in the announcers jinx. Or like, oh, he's made a bunch of field goals this season. You're like, oh, miss is coming.
Especially if it's Tony Romo that's saying it. You know, he's just jinxed you.
Or Jim Nance last night on Tyler Bass. He goes 9 for 9 and he misses wide right.
All right, so game recaps. So we're going to start off first, which started off like that. I thought this was going to be the game of the week, and I was completely wrong. I mean, for the first half, it was pretty good with Ravens versus Texans. So to recap a little bit on the scores there, for the first half, once the first half was concluded, they were tied.
Defense got to C.J. Stroud. The offensive line didn't have enough time to protect Stroud to throw the ball. It caused the Ravens defense, the Texans, to go 4 3-and-outs and 1 4-and-out.
So, like, that old O-line has just not been good the entirety of the season and really hasn't been good for a while. CJ's been succeeding in spite of it, in all reality. He's been the one that's really been making dynamic plays, because his O-line basically completely falls apart and he has to make a play, and he'll do it. But the problem is that you can only do that so much. Sometimes you just need a good O-line. And it's literally like half the teams in the league, the reason why they're not doing well is because they have a bad O-line.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, as a Bengals fan, I know that pain. But I mean, my concern with CJ Stroud is because, like, right now he's that kind of like weird because he's a rookie quarterback, and he's going in and he's doing well, right? Like, I don't think that like he's going to become like the next Tom Brady. If the Texans don't do something to fix their O-line, he may end up being one of those quarterbacks that you look at the end of their career and was just like, what if? Like, what if they had made the proper investments and got the right people around to protect him? How dangerous he would be. You know, it's kind of like the Tony Romo or maybe
Andrew
Luck or Rivers would have been another good one where, you know, they just kind of flamed out. Because right now, like you've got your big four with, you know, Mahomes,
Allen, Jackson, and Burrow.
Yeah, like those are your big ones. And then you're sitting there like looking at this going, you know, if you can't protect him, you can't give him enough time. Like you're just squandering his talent. Now, I guess you could say the same thing about what's going on in Jacksonville.
And also, Laremy Tunsil was injured in that game in the third quarter. They didn't return in the fourth, and their depth for offensive line was depleting entering the fourth quarter.
I mean, the thing too, though, is even if you go out and you get you a decent O-line, you know, you got to make sure you got the right O-line coach there too to develop it, because that's something that a lot of other teams are struggling with. As for segueing from the Texans side of the ball, you go the Ravens, and I mean, Lamar just put it in that extra gear that Lamar has. And as someone who has watched Lamar play at the college level and has made grown men look like they're playing pee-wee football a lot, like this is he is just on fire this year. That's the only way to describe it. There were several times when he was just doing some, you know, just little basic scramble stuff, and he looked like he was going like everything else around him was in slow motion, and then there's Lamar doing Lamar speeds, and as an AFC North Bengals fan that hates everyone else in the AFC North, oh, he just looks so good during that game.
I was saying, I've been telling everybody since week 1, Lamar Jackson is on a mission this year. He really wants a Super Bowl. Doesn't want MVP. Doesn't want to just make the playoffs. He wants a Super Bowl. And what you're seeing is the culmination of that drive and desire to prove all the critics wrong. He came out in that game and turned it on in the second half and was just doing things that you'd probably see on not backyard football, NFL Street, that game that was out years ago in the 2000s. Just acrobatic moves making everyone look silly. So this result, it doesn't shock me. I think Lamar definitely is right now. He's clearly the best player in the playoffs, the best quarterback, and the Ravens will go as far as he can take them.
We might be getting a Ravens 49ers Super Bowl rematch back in the old days of the old Harbaugh Bowl when the Ravens won that with Joe Flacco. We might be getting that rematch, but I certainly think that you are correct. Yeah, I think Lamar is on a mission, and he really proved all the haters wrong because like the narrative was he's 1-3 in the playoffs, and he's injury prone, and he's not the guy, and he proved them wrong. Had he lost this game, everyone would be like freaking out and talking about how Lamar can't handle it in the playoffs. But they're not doing that because for one, he actually didn't get injured, so he's healthy.
Something I saw about Lamar that was just very impressive to me was the fact that he started adapting to the Texans defense, because the reason why the Texans kept it close with the Ravens the entire game was because their defense was cooking in the first half. And one player actually on the Texans that was, keeping Lamar down all night long until the second half, that was Christian Harris. Christian Harris was on Lamar all night and ensuring that Lamar just got nowhere. But Lamar and the Ravens came back second half, and the thing I like about Lamar is he adapted to it, and he just found a way around that, and you saw where that went.
Yeah, with 11 carries, 100 rushing yards, and 2 TDs, most of it came in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, they had the rushing touchdowns, but like the thing, this is like this part of like Lamar that makes him so incredible, because the discussion was, okay, is he the best traditional quarterback in the league? And the answer is no, he's not. But if I'm building an offense around someone that I want to play quarterback for me, I'm taking Lamar Jackson every single time, because what he does is he forces the defense to have a second, or to have a guy basically there for when Lamar does Lamar magic. There's someone to try and at least intercept it, which is what we were just discussing about how the Texans had a guy that was on him, which is, there was a lot of discussion too during it about how like elite Baltimore's running back core is and how deep they are in running back. But that's not true. The thing is that you automatically have gotten an extra window of opportunity. If you're a running back, somebody is going to have to sit there and be like, okay, I got to be there in case Lamar starts to scramble. I have to pounce on Lamar if Lamar has to scramble. And what that does is that takes someone that could potentially block one of your running lanes out of the picture. And so you could take you just draft a whole bunch of mediocre running backs, and as long as they're decently fast, they're going to get through.
Was their disciplined ball playing? They had hardly any penalties that game.
Yeah.
I don't think that gets talked about a lot. Penalties are huge, and the Texans had quite a good bit. The Ravens played pretty disciplined that entire game.
I mean, also their defense looks pretty scary as well. I mean, they were able to get past that. I mean, the Texans O-line, as we said before, was not that great, but they still were able to make plays and do all kinds of stuff and cause havoc. And really, in that second half, the Texans were keeping up. They were only just, and then the second half, that offense got real tired and just like could not go, and just dominating time of possession, dominating everything else in the second half. That's how you beat people. If you can just wear down their stuff and just like be a nightmare for them, then yeah, you're going to win the game.
Yeah, because I mean that one ended up becoming a blowout because the Texans were just completely shut down in the second half. I mean, they got goose eggs for both of those, whereas Lamar just Lamar'd it. I mean, it was 7. I think they got a touchdown the third, and I think it was either 14 or 17 points in the fourth quarter, and it was just because you look at the final score, it's similar to the Dallas game where the final score doesn't represent the game. The Packers versus the 49ers. That one was an exciting game because I think I had the Niners. I'm 99% sure. Lexi told me over the weekend that I had the Niners, so I couldn't remember what I actually had. But I knew that I was actively pulling for Green Bay because I wanted Green Bay to fight Detroit in the next game. But that didn't happen. But my prediction was that the Niners were going to get through. And
yeah, the Niners are in trouble. It looks like they're very much a beatable team. It looks like they look like they were when they were in that slump in the middle of the year. Brock Purdy did not play that well. CMC did fine and everything else, but also that defense just didn't hold up as much as we want it to, and that's a big problem.
Well, it just completely imploded. They had the fourth quarter, they shut down Green Bay. So they shut down the magical quarterback generation, bag where you're pulling out Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I mean, the first half, it was a 1-point game. Then Pack goes on top, and they go on top big, 13-7. Yeah, and then 49er, their defensive black magic shows up.
But there was 2 key plays in that game when the went for 4th and 1 in the Niners area in the Niners red zone. They didn't get the first down. They should have kicked the field goal to make it 7-6. Then they should have kicked. They kicked the field goal at halftime. That should have made it 9-7. I'd rather be up 9-7 going into halftime than being down 7-6.
Yeah. And I mean, and that was the difference of the game, really,
Another thing is when they went for that, when Kraft got that touchdown and they went for the 2-point conversion to go up by 7. Do you think they would have gone for the 2-point conversion with that field goal they should have kicked after the not converting the 4th and 1? You'd be up by 10, 2-score game. That was a key right there. The rain was the difference in the second half. Love collapsed in the last 4 drives, going 6 for 12, 30 yards, 2 INTs, causing a punt, missed field goal, and those 2 INTs.
I'm going to ignore Jordan Love's numbers for a bit. Aaron Jones, 18 carries, 108 yards. Packers had an average of 5.3 yards per play, 7 of 13 on third down. The Packers came in and smashed the Niners in their mouth. They didn't win, but they still made a statement. This Niners team, I'm not going to say they're frauds or they're not as good as advertised, but there's something going on there, because there's no way you should allow 5.3 yards per play with the defense that they have. Granted, Dre Greenlaw, 2 interceptions on Love, especially I think there was one at the end that Love threw where she shouldn't have thrown. But there's just something going on with the Niners right now that I can't put my finger on. And if they're going to be without Deebo Samuel, well, then that's one less target for Brock Purdy to throw to. By the way, Purdy's numbers: 23 of 39, 252, 1 touchdown. Had somebody on Twitter claim that Brock Purdy led a Joe Montana-esque drive down the field. Let me just stop you for a second. To compare or even put Brock Purdy in the same conversation as Joe Montana is just blasphemous. This guy looked booty for most of the game.
Twitter takes, because everyone on Twitter is absolutely stupid.
Oh,
so I mean that's more proof.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
But if they're not without Deebo Samuel, that game is wide open. say what you will about George Kittle, great tight end. I'm not really a fan of Brandon Ayuk. I never have been, but that's just me.
So they are 100% beatable. They have stuff that you can clearly exploit. I don't think it's a Super Bowl contender.
But here's the thing. They were never invincible. I think what happened was people saw that the rest of the NFC was either very suspect or unproven in the case of Detroit. And this is a one-dimensional team. If you take away Christian McCaffrey, you're asking Brock Purdy to put the game on his shoulders.
Yeah.
He's not capable of doing that. He's a glorified game manager.
Buccaneers,
Oh.
Lions.
I mean, I don't know anyone that's excited about this game. We can skip it, right?
The only thing
I don't see that person in this room to talk about it.
I mean, we could totally skip talking about, this historic win by Detroit.
I just don't think that I don't think that Baker's ready to be a playoff quarterback yet. That's all I gotta come up with.
Playoff quarterback,
mean-
dude. Come on, he threw for 349 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Lions defense, but he was only sacked 4 times though, and he kept that play alive on 4th and 14 with 5.5 to go to get that touchdown.
I get it, and he's good.
I'm gonna break your world here. Baker Mayfield is now number 3 in all-time yards, and I think accuracy and something else for Tampa in the playoffs. On the same page, if you're the bronze medalist to Tom Brady, you're gonna take that. Yeah, because it was the Bucs versus Lions, so that didn't fall apart to the end, and that's where the discussion comes in about the 2-point play.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in every situation, especially with that amount of time left, you always take the points. I'm pretty sure that kicker they have was more than likely automatic when it came to extra points.
Right.
The points are right there. Take the free points. Don't gamble. And then if you don't get it, you look foolish. Because even if they went to score again, they're down by 2 points at that point. So it's like, that's not good coaching, I don't think.
Like when they did it, I was like, this makes sense. But then like everyone else that we were watching the game with was like, no, it doesn't make sense. And like it was breaking my head. And there's a formula. So you take your 2-point conversion percentage, okay, and so like say you're there's a 40% chance you're going to make it. Well, you've got that plus that it ends up in the second point, and you do a bunch of math with it. As long as you're above a 45% and your field goal unit is under 99%. It always makes sense to go for the 2-point in that situation. Because if you fail the first time, you have a chance to just do it again. And now you see what their defense is against the 2-point conversion. And you should have an alternate attack pattern and at least get back your extra point. That's the whole point. But this way, if you do the 2 points the first time and you get it, you now have that extra point over top of your competition. Mathematically, it makes sense, and you take that gamble every single time because it gives you the actual better chance of winning the game without having to go to overtime and then relying on the overtime rules, especially when you are struggling to come back from a team that has been dominating you at that point. Because like you're just relying on one stop.
Sometimes just taking the points and doing the safe option, even if statistically it might give you a less chance of winning, means a whole lot, because that means also a momentum swing. Momentum is a big key factor for the minds of the players. If you don't get that 2-point conversion, or if they get that points, maybe the other team is going to be pressured to get a touchdown, and that means that they're going to make more mistakes. So that's the other thing, is that you're not factoring into these other factors that can, in the mental game, that can really affect football. So you got to be careful about it.
Well, but that's the thing, right? So if you get the extra 2 points and you're coming back from a deficit, that's where they still have to go for the extra. They have to go at least for a touchdown to keep the distance at bay, because otherwise now you're within field goal range or field goal for tying.
It's hard to boil football down to a math problem.
Well, no, and I get that, but like what the math does, it doesn't so much becomes a math problem, it becomes a risk reward thing, right? And like, I mean, granted, like this is also me this week versus me last week, where I criticized McDaniels for basically playing or basically coaching the Miami Dolphins like he's running Madden, right? And and that was too heavy in that. Now, in this particular situation, I agreed with the coach, and I thought it was the right decision. It didn't work out for them because they got stopped, but that's not why they lost the game. If you're trying to give you the best chance, it's like, when is the best time to call timeout? Like, there's a lot of discussion on whether or not you should save all your timeouts for the 2-minute warning, or you should start taking them before the 2-minute warning. And I'm a firm believer that you take it before the 2-minute warning.
I think also, even with the 2-point conversion and all that, that's also a case can be made. Well, that's situational,
Well, it is. I mean,
But I
that's
think
what
in
the
this
formula is. Yeah.
right. But I think in this situation, it would have been safe to just go for the extra point. It's pretty much a give me, unless your kicker's Tyler Bass. It's a give me, and live to see another down.
And also, the Lions had a
But
running clock before the 2-minute warning. The reason why they had to snap it, the play clock was at 2. And that's why I had to snap it on 3rd and 11. They had to throw it quickly and to stop the clock at 2:04, putting it back to the Bucs. So the Bucs had that 2-minute warning on their side and the extra timeout. But they didn't use the extra timeout because that series ended 2 plays later with the Baker Mayfield interception to end the game.
Throwing the bad ball.
he was baking something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I think my line was, he was baking a souffle and it collapsed.
yeah, and that's what I had to say about Baker. Yeah, he put up good numbers, but it's kind of hard to have room for 2 interceptions in a playoff game, especially against the team that's expected to beat you.
Yeah, I mean, and to give credit, like, all right, so you guys are all like, it sounds like I'm the only one that thinks it makes sense, and to go for the 2. And the question is, if they would have gotten it, would that have been your same tone?
I would have said it fine.
I think the fact that they missed increased the stress on Baker, which is probably why he made the mistake. But Jingles, what do you think?
I understand why they went for 2 to try to get it out of the way early as possible, so that they don't have to worry about it on that final drive. But seriously, you didn't know the outcome. Take the points, so you make it a 7-point game. And if you want to pull off so-called Dan Campbell motivation on the final drive, then you can say you go for 2 for the win.
So you've doubled your odds of hitting it, and that's the reason why that it makes sense mathematically. Silat, what do you think?
I'll keep it a stack. I still would have second guessed what Todd Bowles was doing. Like, congrats to you. You did the impossible and got a 2-point conversion. However, you wouldn't have had to rely on a 50-50 ball if you had just taken the points. But that's just me.
You got to focus on the drive you're on. Every single time, you got to focus on the drive you're on. And so, like, betting on getting future points and getting really cute with it, it ends up blowing up at your face more often than not.
We're going to move on to what ended up being the most amazing game this weekend. Like, if you didn't get a chance to watch this shootout, I am sorry. And a friend of ours, Danny, was at the game. In fact, it was their very first time going to a Bills game. And I asked Danny, just because, like, I mean, it was the Bills were up 4 points, I think, at halftime. And I asked Danny, he's like, so why did you go to the game? And Danny goes, well, I stopped listening to my parents because they were just saying, well, it's the same old Bills. Danny had never been to a Bills game, so like never got to experience Bills Mafia or any of that stuff. It ended up being a whole 12-hour day. Like, got the full experience, hanging out, jumping on tables, wearing real tree because apparently that's their alternate colors. As someone who goes to NFL games, like it is like you've got an environment to experience, especially since Danny's probably going to be moving soon, and like that's their one chance to go to a home game and just to get to experience it firsthand. And they had fairly decent seats. I think they were 3 rows back in one of the end zones.
him missing wide right in the same way that Buffalo lost their first Super Bowl in what, 94? Was it?
91.
91. That is brutal. I can't imagine being a Bills fan and watching that. And to the Chiefs, no less, again, and at home.
I mean, everybody's bagging on Tyler Bass. Where the hell was Stephon Diggs? 3 receptions, 21 yards.
On 8 targets.
Yeah, Latavius Murray, James Cook, Khalil Shakir. Who the hell is Khalil Shakir? Never heard of this guy. 7 receptions for 44 yards.
Shakir?
Yes.
Oh
If
no,
you have-
Shakir's been pretty prominent this year on the Bills.
Oh, I don't watch Bills games, so that's probably why I don't know him. But if Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir are leading you in receptions and not your premier wide receiver, that is a problem. It's Sean McDermott. And if he's not on the hot seat next year or going into this offseason,
Oh no.
then I don't know what they're doing. They can't beat Kansas City. So they have a problem in Orchard Park that they need to figure out, or else they're going to have to blow it all up.
Well, no,
Their run
go ahead,
game was
go.
non-existent.
Like their run game was non-existent. Like after the first half, the first half it was going. I think it was Cook, and he was cooking, and they shut that down into the second half.
I mean, ironically, Buffalo was the ones that was getting the drops today when we all thought it would be the Chiefs tonight.
But yeah, I mean, they were on point. They were. I mean, Jingles and I sat there and watched them. They were going through people's fingertips, and it wasn't just one. Like, okay, great. Now, granted, like I'm the first person that says that like Bills played the game wrong. Like they were relying far too much on Allen's deep ball towards the end. Like we went back to the same old Bills, as Salek says, where okay, we're going back to hero ball, where like Allen's gonna just throw a bomb, and if it's caught, like, oh, everyone's amazing. But they completely abandoned the middle part of the field. And if you go back and watch that game, I want to say like 50% of the balls were thrown behind the line of scrimmage, and 50% were thrown at least 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. And at that point, if you don't have a middle production, you're not going to be able to stretch out the defense the way you want it to, and that was the problem. I don't know. What do you think, Cy?
I think that they need a running game like really bad if they're ever going to compete. And that, you know what? It's not just him. It's any other quarterback. You just can't do that. Even with Mahomes, when you saw Mahomes do it, during games this year, you saw what happened. The Bills need to. It's just there's a lot wrong with them, and I don't know how to fix them.
Well, it gets worse.
I really don't, because you could look at the Bills and think, okay, they're a player or two away. It's more than that. It's not. I don't think it's so much a player personnel thing. I really do think it's coaching, and I personally think McDermott's the issue there, and he needs to go. Someone has to take the fall for this. I mean, this has become a common theme now. They always run into the Chiefs, and they cannot get over the hump. I mean, something has to give. It's clearly not Allen. Allen's not the problem. Is it Diggs? I don't think so. Is it a player personnel thing? Probably.
I would say that it is Diggs over. I mean, Allen's kind of figured out hero ball, because none of the stuff that he was doing hero ball wise was just like mind-boggling stupid and forcing things, because he's gotten that point where he's dialed it back enough to where he is in that Josh Allen sweet spot of hero ball. And if he had better receivers around him, 100% they would have won.
So I think we're going to figure out this offseason how the Bills organization feels, who the issue is, because
it's got to be Diggs.
And there's an argument that they're not going to keep Diggs simply because his
cap.
And I don't have the numbers, the cap numbers, but
$19 million to save him. You trade him.
Yeah, he's expensive, and there's always been that lingering question of, does Diggs want to be here, because he's done things that have been very suspect. I don't know where he goes or who, he'll have a lot of suitors, but
If you get a couple of first round, especially right now, like with the way that the college pool is looking, because like you're the Bills, so you don't need a freaking quarterback, which means you're just looking for running backs and wide receivers, and there's a lot on the college side of things that can definitely light things up for you. And that's got to be where you're going as the Bills.
has the window for the Bills closed? And personally, I don't know how to answer that.
I don't think it's closed. It depends on what they do going forward. If they decide to keep Diggs, it's closed and it's done. And congratulations, this is as far as you're going. If you drop Diggs and you restructure some things and you use some of this trade capital to reorganize, because again, like everyone was saying, after LA won the Super Bowl, they're like, well, they won't be back for another 5 years. Well, they were competitive this year magically because they figured out how to drop some dead weight, move things around, get things moving. I am not a firm believer of this is your target window and there will never be another one. There will always be another target window. There are many teams that are examples of that.
And also, Josh Allen's new contract going into effect this offseason at $41.1 million against the cap. So that's going to hurt them a lot. They're going to be a cap hell just like the Saints are right now. And they're going to have they have a lot of key free agents coming up for the Bills. The main question is, like you said, are you going to keep Diggs or are you going to trade Diggs to save $19 million?
One person on the Bills that I'm curious to see what happens. And again, I don't know what their cap number is. It's Von Miller. He turns 35 in March. Didn't really have that big of an impact looking this year. So, if they're going to cut weight as well, if he decides, okay, I'm going to try once again.
You want me to be real? I think Patrick Mahomes feeds off that energy too.
Well, of course he does, because he's a little crybaby.
Obviously.
Well, we had the clip where he it zoomed in on him and he was screaming at the ref saying that was BS because he got was it sacked or pushed out of bounds? One of the two. No, you made a dumb play and this is football. Yeah, just tough it up there, Buttercup. I don't know how else to explain that.
The touchback rule went into effect 2 plays
was
after the
such a
fake
good-
punt, which
All right,
was
so-
the worst coaching call from Sean McDermott. The worst one. Why you want to do that with DeMar Hamlin? And yet you want to do the element of surprise because they had 10 Chiefs players on the field, but he was jogging to the right? Really? He wasn't even trying. 2 plays later, you get the bounce of the gods of the touchback because the guy sat on his face and lost the ball at the 1 and rolled out of the back of the end zone. That I guarantee you, that rule's gonna be changed because every time these two teams play, a rule will always change. That rule's gonna be changed.
It better not.
That rule shouldn't be changed.
But then we also got a look at the Taylor Swift booth. Jumped out of the booth and joined the Bills Mafia. All I know is that the entire game he was just shirtless.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. Dude was doing it like it was nothing too. Didn't even faze him.
Now, as far as the Taylor Swift rant goes, is I've seen a lot of people posting stuff and they're just like, well, hey, I'm sick and tired of seeing NFL fans complaining about the coverage of Taylor Swift. And I feel like we need to talk about this just a minute because first off, one, I feel like it's an anchor that is potentially weighing the Chiefs through a mediocre season towards something more than what they deserve. It constantly confuses the fact that some wide receiver on the Chiefs might be married to Taylor Swift because, spoiler alert, 3 times now. That's the current count because there's a counter that's going on. How many times that Tony Romo assumes that Taylor Swift is Kelsey's either fiance or wife or husband. We're at 3 now on live broadcasts. I don't care. You want to show Taylor Swift in there? It's fine. The problem is that I'm a sports fan. I'm watching a sports game, and I don't want to be asked about the fact that they showed Taylor Swift on there, rather than the fact that we just watched what I could arguably call a classic NFL game. And if anyone watched that game from start to finish, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but like that was a classic football game.
Absolutely. And
Yes, it
that's
was.
why it gets frustrating whenever you have like a celebrity like Taylor come in like that and just take all the attention, right? It's something that gets under everybody. Every football fan's skin is just the fact that she is like getting all the attention, and that's what everybody's just constantly asking about, like you said. And everybody's just tired of hearing it.
My anger is that it could potentially influence decisions that are made on the field, and the fact that people that aren't watching the game for any other reason, for that 6-second clip of Taylor Swift, that like I'm just like I don't like, if you don't care about football, don't come out and talk to me about football, because like I will talk to you about football. Everyone in here knows this, and I will go on to all of my hot takes and all of the fun stuff involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the love of God, just don't come to me to talk about a football game and mention a pop star who didn't catch a single ball.
I just think it's also a little bit rich to be like, oh, it could influence the field on the play. It's like, yeah, sure, but if you look at like calls from around the league, this is a league-wide thing, and a lot of the games that had really bad calls in them, it's bad officiating. It's not like, you don't have to make it a conspiracy theory. It's just bad officiating.
I see where Aquino comes from though, with the whole like, Taylor Swift is here, and it influences, some kind of like nudge under the table, like, hey, this gets us money.
Refs are human. They're prone to make mistakes. And I'm going to tell you right now, if there was any kind of shady dealings going on, in this day and age, I guarantee you, somebody would have sounded the alarm already or would have talked. What you have are people under a lot of pressure trying to decide the outcome of a game. And they make calls, and sometimes the calls are wrong. Sometimes they swallow a whistle in their best judgment. It happens. I don't think the NFL is calling, the refs to tell them, hey, Taylor Swift is in the box. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. We'll make it worth your while. I don't think that's what's going on. I think sometimes bad calls get made, and sometimes players are beneficiaries of that, like Patrick Mahomes. It just happens.
Let's just say that we're just going to incorporate a new flag. Let's call it a red flag for the officials, or a blue flag for the officials, because that way it doesn't get confused with a challenge flag. Where if the officials think something wasn't quite right and they're not sure, they've had their little meeting, they throw the flag and go, Sky Judge, tell us what the fuck you saw.
That's just a booth review. You described a booth review.
Yes, but they don't do that, because like we saw that live, where if someone would have reviewed it from the Sky Judge, or even sent it up to New York to have someone else take a look at it, of just like, okay, great, we'll make sure it's only 2 of them a game, or whatever, just give that as an option, because if they're not sure, they shouldn't be throwing laundry anyway.
You want to do what the XFL did and have a officiating up in the skybox and radio down to the refs like, hey, you missed this call right here. Or, hey, that was a bad call. Pick up the flag. Say no penalty. Repeat down. Do you want the NFL to do what the XFL does? If you want to go that way,
Yes.
we can have a discussion about that.
Might be reasons why they don't do that. It could be a situation involving the officiating. The officials have a union, right? I think they do. It could be
Mhm.
a reason why
Yes,
you
the
don't
refs
see that.
Yes, the refs do have a union.
Like there might be stipulations in the collective bargaining agreement the league has with the refs to where it's prohibited. I think the NFL is a very innovative league, and if they wanted to get rid of any suspicions that things might be rigged, they would have done this by now.
Dean Blandator, the head ref for the union, literally broke it down like how we stop the so-called corruption within the refs, and they literally broke it down like we have followed their text, we follow their game plan. We told them not to wear any NFL affiliated when they're on their flights to and from the game. And we always check your banking accounts for all the refs, make sure there's nothing inadequate or excessive funds going in there before or after game time. So that's how they so-called monitor people not getting paid off or rigging the games.
All right, so we're just gonna move on into last week's predictions. So, but I'm pretty sure I was at 75%. So I got
I was at 50%. The ones I did not predict, I thought the Bills would win. I didn't get any of the AFC. Thought the Bills would win. I thought I went on a limb and said Texans would win. I knew I was probably going to lose the Texans one, but the Bills one was the one that more surprised me, and I'm kind of not too happy about that because I'm sick of Kansas City at this moment.
all right. So what do you got, Salah? What did you have last week? Do you remember?
I think the only one I missed was Detroit and Tampa Bay.
Jingles. What did you have? Provided that.
I had the Ravens, the Niners, the Lions, and the Bills.
All right, Bunt. What did you have?
I had the Ravens, the Bills, the Lions, and the Niners.
The crazy part about this is we are actually better than I think Vegas as a group. Lions versus the 49ers, Bunt. Who do you got?
You know, I said that the Niners are going to make it to the Super Bowl like this go round last week, and I was thinking that, throughout the playoffs, but after Packers, they just look extremely beatable. I think I'm going to have to redact that whole thing and say that the Lions are going to now make it. I totally changed my mind about that. Like, they just showed, the Niners just showed so much vulnerability, and I think the Lions can tackle all of it and win that game.
And then Chiefs versus Ravens.
I still stand. I think that the Ravens going to come out on top. Lamar's just cooking. And, the Ravens are just a solid team of just all around. And, again, I think, offense is going to cook. And, Lamar with the ball and all that stuff, being phenomenal the way he is, I genuinely think the Ravens will actually make it to the Super Bowl this year.
Dialogues. Lions versus 49ers. Who do you got?
So I'm just going to throw out a number real quick. 319. That was the amount of passing yards the Bucks had against the Lions. Lions have no passing, have a very suspect pass defense, even with CJ Gardner-Johnson. If Deebo Samuel is out there, they're going to exploit that. I think this is going to be a very close game, but I do think the Niners will pull it out. I think they'll win by 3 if I had to put a number on it. So yeah.
Close game, win by 3. All right. So what do you got? Chiefs versus Ravens.
Ravens without question. I love Patrick Mahomes. I really do. I think playoff Mahomes is
gross.
a real
That's
thing.
Disgusting. That's terrible. I don't know why you would choose. Fine. Go buy your Go buy your Allstate insurance or whatever.
But I have to go with the Ravens, not only because they're from Baltimore and whatnot, but I really think Jackson is on a whole other level right now. That team looks complete. Kansas City just lacks any passing options outside of a washed-up tight end and Rashid Rice. And I don't trust Montez Valdez-Scantling, and I don't think Kadarius Toney is even playing. So it's been fun, but Ravens are going to win. We're going to see Niners Ravens Super Bowl like it was always predicted.
I think that the Lions are going to win against San Fran. I think San Fran's always had a problem in the championship for a couple of years now. I don't think they're going to change that narrative. It looks like they were slipping when they were playing the other day. So it looks like I think that they're a very beatable team, and I think it'll be a close game, but I think Detroit will win it out. Their defense has been slipping recently. Their defense was really keeping them in games. Mahomes has always been having trouble. I mean, I think Kadarius Toney does something stupid and loses that game, and Patrick Mahomes cries about it. That's what's going to happen.
So I'm going Lions. Well, first off, I mean my argument, it's always been the same one, is that the Bengals have shown how to dismantle the 49ers defense. So Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, go watch that game because we picked them apart for an obscene amount of points compared to what their historic average is. Yes, we had Joe Burrow. I wouldn't call him healthy, but like functional. Which, I mean, you should be able to get close to that. I mean, I think it's going to be the Lions. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be closer than we all expect. But that would be the game. Now, granted, every time I say that something's going to be close, it's going to be wrong. So take that for what it is. It might be a complete blowout in Detroit's favor, which would keep Seawolf happy. The other one is, it's Ravens. Like, Lamar should clown on everything that's coming to him on the defensive side from Kansas City. Because keep in mind, Kansas City is depleted on the defensive side. I mean, yes, they have good people. And they've done a fairly decent job of standing something up. But, like, if you don't have a number one defense, you're not containing Lamar Jackson. You're just not. And that's where I sit. Jingles.
All right, so the Lions, Niners. Niners are favored by 7 at home. I'm going to take the Lions straight up. The Lions know how to. Jared Goff knows how to play on the West Coast. Jared Goff knows how to throw the ball to Reynolds and Amon St. Brown. Gibbs can run the ball up the middle against that Niners defense. Look at the Aaron Jones did to that defense. Gibbs could do the same thing. On the other side of the ball, Aiden Hutchinson could be a wrecking ball on the front seven with the Lions. Now it depends on Debo being healthy for the Niners. Could be a huge impact for Purdy. So give me the Lions straight up. Chiefs, Ravens. Ravens are favored by 3 at home. Give me the Ravens. Lamar Jackson better have crab cakes ready to sit to Josh Allen because Josh Allen exposed the run defense against the Chiefs. The Chiefs couldn't stop Josh Allen or James Cook on the run game. They couldn't stop him. And Lamar running for 100 yards against that Texans defense, he's going to do it again against the Chiefs defense. And especially with the weapons with Zay Flowers, OBJ, Gus Johnson, and Isaiah Likely. We don't know about Mark Andrews. That's going to be a wild card right there. If Mark Andrews is going to be able to play on Sunday. So give me the Ravens.
All right. And now we have our closeout topic. Coaching changes. Everyone's favorite, which is not mine. Because right now it's been reported that the Bengals offensive coordinator is going to be taking the head coaching job down at the Titans. The only thing I can hope is that he'll take his O-line coach with him.
All the Titans fans are happy right now because there was a report that Dan Quinn might have gone to the Titans, which I personally would have loved. I would love to play against Dan Quinn 2 games a year. That'd be great.
100%. Yeah.
So I'm sad that another team in my division gets a good coach, but I am happy that the Jaguars stole the Falcons head coach, but the Falcons coach. What was his name?
Defensive coordinator, former defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Ryan
Jags.
Nielsen. So I'm happy with that because our defense collapsed late last year, and that cost us a couple of games and cost us the playoffs.
Well, the other ones, so the Raiders have hired their coach. They hired the interim coach under advice from, surprisingly, the players had petitioned. I hope it's a short contract, because in my experience, anytime that the players have petitioned for a coach, especially for a mid-season change, it gets them through the end of the season, but it doesn't always work out. The Panthers have grabbed a GM.
They promoted within.
Good.
Yep. The assistant GM is now the full-time GM, who is a former player of the Panthers.
Last but not least, we have the Chargers, who are interviewing Harbaugh.
Yeah, he's going there. It's the perfect situation for Harbaugh. You have one of the top 10 quarterback who have a team around him. I mean, the only bad thing he has to worry about is suspect ownership with the Spanos family, but otherwise, he'll be fine.
I mean, the ownership, it depends on what he's after. If he's trying to go after that Super Bowl ring, which, I mean, he just won the national title in college, so maybe that is what his goal is. Otherwise, the numbers that I'm seeing that have been thrown around for him, which was somewhere around 15 million
Oof.
Yeah, I
a
saw
year.
that too.
Like you're talking, all right.
If there was one person I'd pay for, I'd probably pay for Harbaugh for that. It's a lot, but at the same time, it's it's Harbaugh. He's gotten people to a Super Bowl before, almost won it, had a really good Super Bowl, and then has also done a bunch of college stuff. But college stuff doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do well in the NFL. But he's proven himself in the NFL already, so that's not even a conversation anymore. Like he's proven himself to be fine. I think it would be good.
Yeah, because the only reason why he lost the Super Bowl is because of the power outage.
Yeah,
I watched that game. I literally watched that game live. Like they were unstoppable until his brother was given a chance to reset, which is like the worst thing. And that every Thanksgiving that's being brought up.
Oh yeah, I feel like he wants a ring because his brother has a ring, and so might as well go.
His brother only has a ring because there's a power outage against him. Otherwise, he would have the ring.
Oh, his brother. I mean, the other Harbaugh might have a second ring. Who knows?
I maintain that owners talk, and his past performance since Brady has retired has led people to believe that it was mostly Brady that was working his magic. I'm not saying I agree with that, but that's the consensus that seems to be out there. And I don't think anyone wants to take a chance on someone in their mid-70s to coach a team and have all that power, especially when his track record as GM has not been good at all.
Better than Arthur Smith.
Well,
most things are.
that's not saying much. That's like a real low bar.
I would say it depends on how close you are. Like all right, so let's just step back from all the teams that have been announced. Like if you're the Bills, do you think you could win letting Josh Allen be Josh Allen with Bill Belichick handling the defense side of things?
Bill
This year,
Belichick would never give up that power, though.
just this year, just like we're just saying, because keep in mind, like Belichick's probably got 1 to 5 years, maybe.
But
Left.
the problem is, why do you want to pay for 2 coaches after you just gave Sean McDermott a 6-year extension?
No. Just hypothetically, like if I could just like slot in a coach. Well, no, but like McDermott's gone. Belichick is head coach, but like you get a Belichick defense with what the Bills brought in. Like they would win this game, I think.
Is he just coaching defense? Is he the GM? Does he have any power whatsoever, or is it just strictly shut up and call the plays?
I mean, again, it's Belichick in terms of like you're just grabbing Belichick, taking him, and you're just pushing him onto your team for 1 to 3 years. Like just go 1 to 3 years with me. Like he's not a GM. He's not drafting anyone. You give him a bunch of garbage, and he's going to develop them, and then he's going to do the Belichick magic, obviously, but he's not picking the stock that he's developing.
Strictly from a defensive standpoint, I think that's tough. I don't know. That's tough.
Like, do you think this game that we would have saw would have gone differently on the Bills?
Probably.
No.
I don't know.
I gotta know who else. All right, so then Jingles, where do you got? Belichick running the Bills this year. Do you think they beat the Chiefs?
I mean, yeah, they would beat the Chiefs with Belichick as a coach.
Okay. But do you think the Bills beat the Chiefs with Belichick? Yes or no?
I'd say no.
Okay.
Because I don't know. There's a lot of. It's just with that game.
A lot of variables.
It was just a lot to do with players, not so much. It was everything overall, yeah, but I don't think it's changing much.
Well, all right then. I mean, I don't know. Like if you're trying to build an elite defense, and then you're just gonna kind of let like a star quarterback just go to town. If you got the room, you throw Belichick on it. If you don't got the room, you let him go.
Well, I think in that situation, the Bills' defense it's good enough to where it's one of those defenses that you can ride to a Super Bowl. It's not like a liability. So I feel like if you're adding Belichick, that doesn't really solve the issue there, which I guess from this podcast, it seems to be it's a personnel thing and not really a coach thing. So,
Well, is a coach not a personnel?
well, I mean, excuse me, player personnel, players. It's a player issue.
Yeah, I think if you would have traded Diggs for 2 receivers that were, I mean, granted, again, I'm gonna just quote the Bengals line, which is, you should always just have like 2 1-star receivers. It works out great. And then then it's just an argument who's your third receiver, which is a nice problem to have, but Diggs was constantly covered, but then even when he got open, he didn't make the big catches, which that is a problem, right?
No, it is. I think he's given up. Honestly, think he's given up and wants out.
I think he wants out of the snow globe. So
Carousel this offseason. It's Washington. New owner. There's a lot of optimism and hope that Josh Harris is going to bring some relief to long-suffering Commanders fans. And it's obvious they're not getting Harbaugh or Belichick. I'm curious to see who they bring in. They hired Bob Myers, who was the former GM of the Warriors.
Yep.
So I'm eager to see where they go, especially if they don't land on Ben Johnson, who very well might end up in Carolina, or if he says I don't want to leave the situation I have in Detroit. I'm curious to see where Washington goes with that. because that's a roster that I don't think is as bad as advertised. Rivera was just a coach who was like let the game pass him by and just was out of it. So I honestly think they're a coach away from being a decent enough team in the NFC. But I mean, their
Yeah.
defense was, well, to be fair, Jack Del Rey was mostly calling defense, but it was
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That'll be interesting. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the episode. So thanks so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe. In the meantime, thanks so much for tuning in for us. And if anybody else has any closing remarks on this, feel free to go. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up.
Football.
Football. That's a good way to end it.
Welcome to Cap Hill, Bills. Time to learn how to talk money.
And
I'm surprised the Saints fan wasn't saying that.
Hey, digs to the Saints. It's gonna happen. You heard it here first.
You're negative 85 million over the cap.
Let's be honest. That's better than going to like Kansas City.
How
right?
the hell are the Saints able to just get away with just going over the cap and saying screw it?
It's an art that
voided contracts.
Anybody else can do.
Skills that don't pay bills.
And that has been a wrap. A sports wrap. Thanks very much for tuning in and hanging out with us. So